Hello, my name is Brett Schug. In this video, my SysCAD colleague, Kevin Heppner, and I will present our work on thermodynamic modeling of rare earth solvent extraction. We previously presented this work at ALTA 2024 in Perth and at the 2024 Saskatchewan, Manitoba Canadian Mineral Processors Regional Conference in Saskatoon. Our presentation includes an introduction to process modeling with SysCAD and PHREEQC, the thermodynamics of rare earth elements solvent extraction, thermodynamic data fitting and analysis, sensitivity analysis through modeling and analysis of additional cases, and conclusions. So why would we use rigorous thermodynamics to model solvent extraction of rare earth elements when isotherms generated from test work are a more common approach? Well, we would do so to reduce test work requirements through modeling. We can leverage extensive research in the field and apply fundamental principles to predict realistic trends in a real process. And we can explore a range of raw data, design, and operational specifications quickly through simulation. With this fundamental understanding, one can actually predict isotherms with changing conditions, whether these changes arise from feed changes or from being in different parts of the circuit, extraction, scrubbing, or stripping. Now, solvent extraction is the most common method of rare earth elements separation. With hundreds of stages and many recycles, a physical system can take weeks to reach steady operation. There are many adjustable parameters for design and optimization of such circuits, as shown here. With modeling, we can quickly explore the impact of changes to these parameters. And for an operating system, we can model the process as feed conditions change. Using a traditional approach, test work would be needed for different feed conditions and operating conditions. Using a thermodynamic approach, where the fundamental mechanism is considered, the model can adjust to changing conditions. Furthermore, important process phenomena can be identified for further test work as part of the model validation. SysCAD, process simulation software, provides the platform and tools to build comprehensive, flexible models of mineral processing, hydrometallurgical, and pyrometallurgical plants for active operation management and all stages of process design. Applications include project justification, performance evaluation, training, planning, and optimization. Our clients include engineers, metallurgists, consultants, plant operations, research and development, and academia. And we serve a wide range of industries, including all minerals and metals, and many other inorganic chemicals and processes with slurries and solids. Along with industry, we are growing rapidly with increasing mining demands for electrification.
SysCAD features a seamless interface to a number of leading chemical thermodynamic calculation engines, TCEs, commonly used in the mineral processing and mining industries. At present, 4 packages are supported, namely OLI, AQSol, PHREEQC, and ChemApp. Note that ChemApp enables the use of databases created using the package FactSage. The SysCAD TCE functionality provides a push-button interface to model complex unit operations where understanding of chemistry is key. These packages can be used as needed, balancing accuracy with computational efficiency. A robust species mapping algorithm between SysCAD and TCE enables use of these calculations in flowsheets, either directly as a unit operation or as a side calculation providing stream information. In this presentation, we selected the thermodynamic calculation engine PHREEQC. This package, developed by the United States Geological Survey, is a freely available thermodynamic engine with an open-source database structure. 2 databases, the Pitzer.dat database and the LLNL.dat database, which were developed by Appello et al. And the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, respectively, contained the required data from modeling rare earth chloride brines in hydrochloric acid solution. Data for the sodium, potassium, magnesium, chloride, and sulfate systems are available, enabling calculation of salt activity up to its solubility limit. Validation of the sodium-potassium chloride system is shown in this slide. Pitzer parameters for the REE chloride salts were calculated using the method proposed by Simoes et al. This, combined with high accuracy model for sodium chloride and hydrochloric acid, resulted in an aqueous model suitable for the application at hand. The approach taken in this work is illustrated in this slide. Firstly, data from open literature sources was gathered. After this, a thermodynamic model of the organic aqueous exchange mechanism was developed. Using the SciPy Optimise package in Python, a SysCAD model of a shakeout test was repeatedly run using various equilibrium constants for the ion exchange reactions, until error between model predictions and experimental data was minimized. The fitted model was then used to successfully predict pilot plant performance reported by Lyon et al. In this work, separation factors were used to further extend the model application beyond available isotherm data. The approach of using separation factors rather than isotherm data was also verified. Finally, a validated, verified model becomes an invaluable tool for process design. We will now review the fundamental thermodynamics on which this work relies. The work to be presented was first presented at COM 2021, that's Conference of Metallurgists, when the NdPr separation model was originally developed. The task is now to propose a reaction mechanism for the extraction of rare earth cations to a cation exchanger. The equilibrium constants of those reactions will then be calculated to minimize the error between model predictions and experimental measurements. The accepted reaction mechanism for rare earth extraction involves reaction with a protonated organic exchanger. The exchange results in the release of acid into the solution. As a result, saponification of the organic using sodium hydroxide is usually done to adjust to the degree of extraction of rare earths. The saponification reaction follows a similar mechanism but results in a sodium-form organic molecule. In each case, experimental data for the PC88A extractant was used to calculate the equilibrium constants for Nd, Pr, and H+. Experimental data for saponification was also used to calculate the equilibrium constants for sodium on the organic. Once the extraction reactions for neodymium and praseodymium were known from isotherm data, separation factors were used to estimate the equilibrium constants for the remaining rare earths. It is notable that these reactions are written independently of the type of acid. Thus, the equilibrium constants obtained should be equally applicable in chloride, sulfate, or nitrate solutions. In this slide, an example of the fitting process is shown. This is actually for lithium ion exchange, but the fitting process employed is identical. The equilibrium constant of the reaction being fitted is adjusted until the calculated isotherm best matches the experimentally determined isotherm. This can be done using the Python interface for SysCAD. Python, using the SciPy Optimise package, repeatedly runs SysCAD until the correct equilibrium constants are determined for the extraction reactions. By doing this for all rare earth elements, a competitive extraction model is developed, where the extent of extraction is influenced by the activity of the ion in solution. In this way, isotherms for different pregnant leach solutions can be predicted. This can significantly reduce test work requirements when a validated thermodynamic model of the system is available. This slide shows the results of data fitting for neodymium. In all cases, excellent agreement is seen between the experimental and predicted results. This is done over a wide range of feed concentrations. Experimental data for this work was taken from Lyon et al., who published his work in 2017. This slide shows the same as the previous slide, but for praseodymium. In both cases, the R-squared value of the fit is well above 95%, indicating very good agreement of the proposed mechanism with the experimental data. It is noteworthy that these data fits require only 3 adjustable parameters, namely the equilibrium constants for the neodymium and praseodymium extraction reactions and the acid dissociation reaction of the acidified extractant. Now that the equilibrium constants have been determined for neodymium and praseodymium, we will focus our attention on obtaining equilibrium constants for the remainder of the rare earth elements. In this work, separation factors were used as a proxy to the ratio of the equilibrium constant for adjacent rare earths. To understand the significance of this assumption, we need to review what separation factors are. A separation factor is the ratio of the distribution coefficient, K sub d, for 2 rare earth elements being compared. The distribution coefficient is the ratio of the amount of the rare earth that is extracted into the organic phase to that which is not extracted, measured at a fixed pH and extracted concentration. Now compare this with an equilibrium constant for the extraction reaction, and it is apparent that a distribution coefficient does not include the distribution of acid. Thus, by assuming that the separation factor between adjacent rare earths is equivalent to the ratio of the equilibrium constants, you are actually assuming that the distribution coefficient of acid for adjacent rare earths is equal. Using this approach, the equilibrium constants for all rare earths was calculated and used in this analysis. Separation factors were taken from a publication by Zhang et al. In 2020. Equilibrium data for saponification was taken from Zaki et al. Also in 2020. It was found that the equilibrium constant for sodium extraction was several orders of magnitude lower than both acid and rare earth elements. This is consistent with the understanding of saponification, as sodium is known to have a very low affinity for the organic extractant. Now that the model has been developed, we can now verify the model. In this case, plant data was only available for neodymium and praseodymium extraction. Thus, validation of the model is not complete. However, 2 steps were taken. Firstly, the neodymium and praseodymium equilibrium constants were validated by comparing the model against independent pilot plant data, where this data was taken from Lyon et al. Again in 2017. Secondly, the assumption that the separation factor was in fact a valid proxy to the ratio of the equilibrium constants for the adjacent rare earths was also tested. Lyon et al. Ran a pilot plant study of an extraction, scrubbing, and stripping plant for the separation of neodymium from praseodymium. The pilot plant layout is shown in these 3 flow sheets. The pilot plant was run to steady state and measurements throughout the process were taken. This plot shows comparison of the thermodynamic model with actual pilot plant measurements for the neodymium distribution. The model accurately predicts the neodymium distribution measured in the pilot plant study. In this slide, we again see very close agreement between the predicted and measured praseodymium distribution in the pilot plant study done by Lyon et al. This shows that the fitted model for neodymium and praseodymium extraction is indeed valid. Keep in mind that these equilibrium constants were determined for separate shakeout test experiments, and thus comparison now to the pilot plant is an independent verification of the thermodynamic model. In all comparisons between model and experimental results, the R-squared value was greater than 95%. In this slide, the approach of using separation factors as a proxy for ratio of equilibrium constant is verified. Two models were run, one for neodymium extraction and the other for praseodymium extraction. The models were run at equal terminal pH and extractant concentration. The separation factor was calculated from the ratio of the predicted distribution coefficients for neodymium and praseodymium. This separation factor was then compared to the ratio of the equilibrium constant for neodymium and praseodymium. The difference between these two ratios was less than 0.5%, indicating that the separation factor is indeed a good approximation to the ratio of the equilibrium constant for adjacent rare earth elements. Thus, estimating equilibrium constant from separation factors with the equilibrium constants of neodymium and praseodymium known from isotherm data was a valid approach.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. With the theoretical approach verified, we can proceed to modeling the solvent extraction process base case. Reviewing the progress, as discussed already, we obtained experimental data, fit that data to a thermodynamic model, validated the model, and now we will show how we can use that model for process design and optimization. The base case we modeled includes extraction, scrubbing, and stripping circuits, saponification, and a simplified model of heavies removal, which represents balance of the plant for heavies processing. Each circuit cell count is as shown here. The circuit models were built in such a way that the SysCAD modeler could quickly specify the number of active cells for an area, and SysCAD would automatically turn off the unused cells. For example, in this SysCAD graphics page, we see 36 extraction cells, with the 25 blue cells being active and the 11 brown cells being offline or non-existent. This base case model represents one stage of possibly many stages of separation. This model could be duplicated for additional separation stages in a fully integrated plant. Other characteristics of modeling the base case include the pregnant leach solution composition shown here and taken from a paper by Tershon et al. The organic to aqueous ratios shown, saponification extended 25%, and the cell counts mentioned previously. Baseline conditions were selected based upon typical operating conditions and are not representative of any specific plant. The results of the simulation of the base case are represented here by this stacked bar graph. Each vertical bar represents one rare earth element. The colors represent the destination for that element. The lightest elements primarily report to the raffinate in blue, the middle elements to the loaded strip in orange, and the heaviest elements more toward the heavy strip in gray. Yttrium, though the lightest of these elements, in practice and in this simulation, acts as if it were between holmium and erbium and has been placed in that location as a result. The results here are qualitatively consistent with expectations based on industrial observations. Following the base case simulation, we proceeded to explore other cases in a sensitivity analysis of the system. The variables adjusted were the scrubbing stripping circuit OA ratios, the extent of saponification, and the cell count in extraction, scrubbing, and stripping. Following on the baseline conditions, we will show that changes in operating conditions affect the cut of the elements between the three outlets, raffinate, strip solution, and heavy strip solution, in a realistic and expected way. Results of varying the O to A ratios are shown here. This plot indicates for each set of OA ratios and for each element, the fraction of that element reporting to the loaded strip solution. Because this loaded strip solution is the middle exit stream, examination of this stream provides insight into changes in elemental distribution of the raffinate and heavy strip also. The lightest elements, still completely or mostly in the case of neodymium, went to the raffinate. The heaviest elements went completely to the heavy strip, with the next heaviest being split between the loaded strip and the heavy strip. For some of the elements, we can see the different separation behaviors between the base case in blue and the case of higher OA ratios in orange and lower OA ratios in gray. The changes seen here are qualitatively as expected. More organic flow relative to aqueous flow, i.e. higher OA ratios, shifts elements away from raffinate and more towards strip solution and heavy strip solution. Saponification was accomplished by contact of the organic with sodium hydroxide solution to achieve a target saponification extent. Saponification extent is the fraction of the organic extractant sites occupied by sodium rather than by acid. By varying saponification extent, we see behaviors represented on the same type of plot, with blue being the base case, orange being the higher saponification extent, and gray being the lower saponification extent. The changes seen are again qualitatively as expected. Higher saponification extent shifts elements away from raffinate and more toward heavy strip. This is because increased saponification increases the efficiency of extraction of REs due to carryover of basicity. Now, varying the cell count produced the results shown here. Again, the results were qualitatively logical, though in this case with little impact for the changes made. Only for the case where the number of stripping cells was dropped from 4 to 2 did we see a sizable shift in elemental distribution. This behavior indicates the ability of the model to assist in circuit design and/or operational optimization. In some of the cases shown, changing the cell count did not affect elemental reporting. That behavior indicates that there were more cells than needed. It is notable that operating conditions, feed composition, and other factors may affect the required cell count. As an additional exercise, and because we had previously seen a strong impact of saponification on elemental distribution, we explored even higher saponification extents. Previously, we had considered 25, 27.5, and 22.5% saponification. Now we opted for saponification extents ranging from 25% to 50%. The blue plot is the 25% base case. We can see for lighter elements and higher saponification extents, elemental distribution again shifts elements away from raffinate and more towards loaded strip. And for heavier elements at higher saponification, elemental distribution again shifts elements away from loaded strip and more towards heavy strip. At 45 and 50% saponification, we found that the plot behaviors we had previously seen, where all the plots reached the 1.0 level for the middle elements, was no longer true. We decided to further review the results with a stacked bar graph. For neodymium, a lighter element, this stacked bar graph shows as saponification extent increases from the base case, distribution favors loaded strip over raffinate, with some material even reaching heavy strip at the highest saponification. In one case, we see that neodymium is distributed across raffinate, loaded strip, and heavy strip. For europium, a midweight element, this stacked bar graph shows as saponification extent increases from the base case, distribution favors heavy strip over loaded strip, as expected. And for erbium, a heavier element, this stacked bar graph shows as saponification extent increased, distribution again favors heavy strip over loaded strip. All these results are consistent with expectations and with industrial observations. All predictions we've shown were made using only fundamental thermodynamic calculations and data available in the open literature. Okay, so conclusions. So in summary, This work has illustrated the application of SysCAD modeling of rare earth elements solvent extraction, including sensitivity analysis for several variables. The thermodynamic engine PHREEQC was used to calculate extraction equilibrium using equilibrium constants obtained by fitting to published experimental data. The trends seen in this simulation results are consistent with expectations and with industrial applications. The qualitative trends are as expected, and for specific applications, a user would need to perform model validation with lab, pilot, and/or plant data. Such validation would yield a model capable of complementing a process design, reducing test work requirements, or optimizing an operation. This work has been presented previously at ALTA 2024 and the 2024 Saskatoon, Manitoba CMP Regional Conference. It has also been published as a technical paper. The example simulation project shown here is included with the current SysCAD software. So thank you for watching this video. We hope you've learned something helpful, and feel free to contact us via email or visit our website. Thank you.